and welcome to the Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And in this episode, we will be reviewing the DC animated film Superman Man of Tomorrow. Now, it's the first direct-to-video animated feature for DC since their last animated film, which was Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, which was a fantastic movie, but it was the end of that continuity of films. So it was exciting to see this new animation style and really this new world being introduced in the DC universe regarding a retelling of the origins of Superman.
Yeah, it's not really his origin. It's more an examination of his early career and the development of the persona of Superman. But we'll talk about it more later on in the episode.
Right, before we get into the review, we're going to discuss the latest comic book movie news that happened in the past week, of which there was yet another Wonder Woman 1984 release date push.
No!
It is now going to come out on Christmas Day of this year. The movie has now had 6 different release dates. Yeah. So I think this film is actually more cursed than New Mutants was, especially considering that the movie was supposed to come out right before this whole pandemic happened.
They should have just stuck with the original release date. The fools!
The other news that we'll be discussing comes out of the latest DC Fandom event that happened this past weekend, in which we got some television news regarding Doom Patrol and Young Justice and how they've been renewed. So we'll talk all about that as always. We list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
Just a quick reminder, guys, to please subscribe to our show if you haven't already. And if you have, please help us grow our podcast audience by giving us a rating or review on whatever platform you're listening to us on, or by sharing us with your fellow DC and Marvel fans.
Yeah, we did get a new review this week. Big shout out to Too Rude Ryan D. Thank you very much for the kind words. Means a lot to us. But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize. So a No Prize is an award that Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media that I personally draw for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. And last week's question, kind of, sort of, not really, tied into the news that Robert Pattinson had contracted coronavirus. We asked, what is your favorite live-action Batman costume?
Which we felt we could determine now that we've seen what the costume looks like from the latest The Batman teaser trailer.
We got a lot of answers. There's been a lot of Batman costumes.
Yeah, let's run down our list of honorable mentions before naming the winner.
My first honorable mention goes to John Starosky, who said that he loves Michael Keaton's bat suit, with its particularly iconic yellow chest symbol being at the forefront of the costume. I agree with him when it comes to Michael Keaton's bat suit. The yellow bat logo on his chest is incredibly striking, and it just made for a really cool, iconic suit.
Our second honorable mention goes to Richard McGrew, who said that his favorite costume was Adam West's suit from the 1960s show, because it was the first costume that didn't look goofy. It also didn't have fake abs, it was all West, baby. Plus, he was able to really move in it, even dance the Batusi dance, if you guys remember that.
Now, when Joseph said that this was our next honorable mention, that's really his honorable mention. Richard McGrew said it didn't look goofy. I kind of think it did.
Real men don't wear fake abs.
My next honorable mention goes to Michael Haggerty, who said that his favorite suit was Robert Pattinson's because it has so many elements of different Batman suits, and it's something that most people could even build and cosplay in. And that is one thing I noticed about the suit. It has elements from the Arkham games. It has elements from Christopher Nolan's suit. It kind of borrows from all of these other suits into one badass costume.
Yeah, are you going to cosplay in it, Jonathan?
I would, but I'd have to shave my beard. And I do like to keep a close trim beard. My daughters freak out if I ever shave it. They're like, "You're not my dad."
Jonathan's next honorable mention goes to Calvin Mims, who said that his favorite Batsuit was George Clooney's from Batman and Robin, because it's so unique compared to the others with the awesome retro 90s touch. And it's really nostalgic to Calvin. But the primary reason he gave was bat nipples. And I think we could all get on board with that.
I'm going to go on a limb and assume that this is one of those ironic answers.
Hey, that movie does have nostalgic value at the very least.
That's probably its only value. My final honorable mention goes to Jeff Miles Jr., who said that his favorite suit was the Kryptonite suit in BVS. And I think he means the armored suit he used against Superman.
Yeah.
It's the most powerful in the sense that it could hold its own against the most powerful hero on the planet. And it's very comic book accurate. And I agree. When I saw that thing for the first time, my jaw just dropped. It was straight out of The Dark Knight Returns. The eyes glow. It's just so hardcore.
Yeah, I really like that one. I was surprised when I first saw that outfit that they were like going there with the Dark Knight Returns like armored suit. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
My final honorable mention goes to Ken Johnson, who said that his favorite suit was from The Dark Knight, the one that Christian Bale wore. He said the armor plates allowed movement and were realistic enough to seem plausible. And this guy knows what he's talking about. In fact, Ken Johnson is one of the executive producers of this show, and he even started his own podcasts about military films, since Ken is in the military, and he talks about all the things that the movies get about the military wrong. His show is called You Call Those Tactics? He puts on a great show. If you guys are interested in listening to it, we'll include a trailer for it at the end of this show. So stay tuned for that.
Before we announce the winner of this week's Snow Prize, we want to give a quick shout out to everyone who gave us an answer, including Aaron Paul, Son of Farhumand, Joshua Smith, Isaiah Bethune, Kelvin John Della Merced, Miggy Madigian, Josh Evelar, Jacob Bell, and JP Lou Nye. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it means a lot to us when you guys reach out. We love hearing your answers.
But the winner of this week's Snow Prize goes to Blue Gangsta, who said his favorite bat suit was Affleck's suit, because it was the first gray and black live-action suit, and the scratches and marks it had on it added so much story without any dialogue. Plus, Ben Affleck just looks terrifying in it, especially in the first scene in BVS.
Oh, when he was like hidden up on the ceiling in the corner?
Yeah. And I love everything about that suit. I love the logo. I love the cape.
It was a nice mix between the Dark Knight Returns suit from the comics and Jim Lee's suit.
Yeah.
I think one of our commenters, Josh Avelar, said that the reason that suit was his favorite because it was more faithful to the comic books.
For sure.
And it's surprising because in the movies, they rarely give Batman a suit that resembles anything like what he's worn in the comics. Like nothing in The Dark Knight looked like it came from the comics.
That's true. And I don't know why. It's like, why reinvent the wheel? But congrats once again to Blue Gangsta. You win this week's Snow Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week.
But now that that's done,
on to the news. So news broke last week that Warner Brothers has decided to postpone the release of Wonder Woman 1984 once again. If you remember, the original release date for Wonder Woman was supposed to be on December 13th, 2019, before COVID ever reached the United States shores.
Yeah, the first change that the movie ever had was actually that it was pushed up to November of 2019.
Which was exciting. You know, we were going to see it early. But then, apparently, Warner Brothers decided that the film should be a summer release, and they delayed it to June 5th, 2020. Which kind of makes sense, because it looks like the 4th of July holiday will play some kind of factor in this film. But then, because of COVID, the film was pushed back first to August 14th, and then to October 2nd, and now finally to December 25th, Christmas Day, 2020. And who knows if it's going to stay there. I kind of suspect it won't.
Yeah, because experts are expecting that the pandemic will actually worsen during the winter months. And Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and is kind of like the nation's head expert on this virus, said that he doesn't suspect theaters will be able to comfortably reopen, meaning patrons won't have to wear a mask, until a whole year after a successful vaccine is released.
And we don't even know when that will be.
Right.
My heart just kind of sank when I heard that news.
Yeah, that's horrible. Because it means that we're either going to sit on these new releases for months later than we initially ever thought we were ever going to see them, or studios are going to have to find some way to deliver these movies at home at a profit.
Yeah, we were talking a few weeks ago about how the comic book industry is being threatened. And now I'm wondering if movie theaters will even be a thing by the end of next year. Either studios are going to have to build a massive amount of drive-in theaters and just release all of their big movies during the summer months, or they're just going to have to release everything to streaming. Now, Warner Brothers is denying that this move was a result of Tenet's poor box office performance. But I mean, come on, who do they think they're fooling?
Not me.
Tenet cost like $200 million to make. And I think Wonder Woman's budget was in the same ballpark. In its opening weekend, Tenet only made $20 million in the US, which is awful. It's terrible.
That's horrible. I haven't seen it yet, though, so...
Yeah, me neither, actually. I really wanted to, I just haven't done it. I suspect Warner Brothers pushed Wonder Woman back so that Tenet can have a longer lifespan in theaters, as people slowly, possibly get more comfortable going to theaters as more theaters open. Tenet will face less competition. But again, if things are suspected to get worse with the pandemic during the cold winter months, we're not even sure if movie theaters will remain open.
It's interesting that Warner Brothers also didn't move the release date for Dune, which is a movie that's scheduled to come out the week prior. And I have to say, that trailer looked pretty awesome.
It did look pretty awesome. I'm actually really looking forward to that film. They're definitely going to push that release. The trailer that they released didn't have a release date, so, they're able to do that.
Yeah. Otherwise, the two films are going to cannibalize each other, and neither of them are going to make as much as Warner Brothers wants. I think the big question here is, why is Warner Brothers being so stubborn in releasing films in theaters, and why aren't they using this time to push their home streaming service, HBO Max?
Especially considering that HBO Max is allegedly struggling right now. You would think releasing films like Tenet, like Wonder Woman, would get everybody on board HBO Max. They must just be really risk-adverse considering HBO Max's low numbers and their past success in movie theaters. Aquaman was released around Christmas in 2018, and it went on to gross over $1 billion.
Of course, that's when theaters were normal. They couldn't possibly hope for the same results with Wonder Woman.
I hope if it doesn't get released on Christmas Day, that they will release it on HBO Max. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Black Widow.
Yeah, I don't know how this news is going to affect Black Widow. Rumors are that Marvel Studios is also considering pushing that film back. But I also feel like the general feeling is that Disney might do what they did with Mulan and put the film on their Premier Access service on Disney+. And that brings us to our question of the week. Would you rather see Black Widow in theaters but delayed, or would you rather see it debut on November 6th on Disney Plus Premier Access? And why?
Post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we will post to social media. In other DC news, the second half of the DC Fandom event took place this past Saturday. It went on for 24 hours, and all of the content was on demand, and it was confirmed that the Doom Patrol series is getting a third season exclusively on HBO Max.
Thank God. I mean,
Right?
If you guys listen to our Doom Patrol Season 2 review, you'll know that we thought the show was great, but we were really anxious that the show wouldn't get renewed and the story would not be able to continue. Because it ended on quite the cliffhanger.
Yeah, I love that show. I love the characters. I was so relieved when they announced this news.
That was really the only news that I was looking forward to that day from the second half of the DC Fandom.
I was kind of hoping to get more information about what's happening with DC Universe in general. With Doom Patrol being an HBO Max exclusive now, it's just, one more nail in the coffin for DC's platform. Now, it was also revealed that Young Justice is being renewed for a fourth season, which is being called Young Justice Phantoms, though we have yet to learn which platform it'll actually appear on.
All I know is that Ben Affleck was the bomb in Phantoms, yo.
Hell yeah, Phantoms like a motherfucker. I never actually finished Young Justice Outsiders, but it's a really good show, and I'm really glad it was renewed. What we didn't learn about was the Harley Quinn animated series, if that's getting renewed for a third season. And I'm not quite sure what's going on with Titans. It was renewed for a third season last November, but I haven't heard anything about it since then. I guess, of course, they can't start filming anything just yet, but we'll see what happens, and we'll see if that show also gets moved to HBO Max.
I can almost guarantee that all these shows are moving to HBO Max.
I mean, Stargirl didn't go to HBO Max. That went to CW.
Except for Stargirl.
I could see Titans on CW, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, I almost think it makes more sense there than HBO, but that's just me.
I think all DC content belongs in HBO Max.
That would be great. I would love that. Just having a one-stop shop in the HBO Max DC hub.
Yeah.
Overall, I was kind of disappointed with the second half of the DC Fandom. I kind of wish they never split the event in two.
Yeah, because there wasn't much news to come out of it, at least not like the first half.
Yeah, definitely. They did have the Superman Man of Tomorrow world premiere. I mean, it wasn't really a world premiere. I actually bought the film before its world premiere, I guess. But it was nice that a lot of people got to see it for free. And hopefully, you, the listener, took part in that and were one of the people who saw it. Because now that the news is over, let's get to our review of the animated film Superman Man of Tomorrow. All right, Alright, so Superman, Man of Tomorrow. As we mentioned earlier, it's DC's first direct-to-video animated feature since Justice League Dark Apokolips War in May 2020 that ended the continuity established by the 2013 animated film Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox. Now this film, Superman, Man of Tomorrow, is potentially the kickoff to a new animated movie universe. And I say potentially because Warner Brothers has been playing coy as to whether this is a standalone film or the start of something bigger. We'll see. I'm sure it depends on the response to this film, which I'm not ready to recommend. There's just a lot of problems with it. But if you want to see it, stop listening now if you want to avoid spoilers. It's not a great film, I would say. There are a lot of plot holes and unanswered questions, but the film is decent and I think an important start to something bigger and better. The animation is absolutely better than what we've been seeing recently. Like, the character design may just be the best in Superman's animated history.
Yeah, I remember that when we got a first look at the animation from this movie, we were concerned that it would come out very, flash computer animated, something along the likes of Archer, because in still frame, the style of the movie does look a lot like Archer. But it's actually nothing like that. It's still computer animated, but the frame rate is so low and the lines are so purposefully unclean that it almost looks hand-drawn.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think with this CG approach, the characters seem to fit a lot better within like a three-dimensional environment than they did in previous films.
The end result of animation is not too dissimilar from the quality that you would find in your standard Saturday morning cartoon. However, that is a slight step up from the animation quality that we were getting in the previous DC animated movie universe.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, we've been so used to Bruce Timm's like templated angular character designs for so long that it's nice to see some variation. Like the thick variable stroke outlines and the cell shading. I really like the look of this animation.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what the other DC characters look like in this particular style.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Now, if you're tired of seeing Superman's origin played out over and over, I'd say you have nothing to worry about here because we spend no time on Krypton at all and focus instead on Superman's early career. The story borrows from the Max Landis comic Superman American Alien, and it deals with Clark Kent's struggle to introduce himself as a hero of the people when he, in fact, is not a human. It's a similar angle we saw play out in 2013's Man of Steel film, directed by Zack Snyder. They both take like a sci-fi First Contact kind of slant, but tonally, the films are pretty different, and story-wise, both films have their advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, tonally, this film seemed much more hopeful. It was a lot brighter than Zack Snyder's vision, and it was actually nice and refreshing to see a hopeful-spirited Superman back on screen. Because the previous animated movies with Superman, were Justice League Dark Apokolips War, and that was dark. The Reign of the Superman movie, dark.
Yeah.
The Death of Superman, hella dark, So this was actually nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Man of Steel naysayers will be happy that Superman holds human life in a bit more regard in this film, and DC diehards will appreciate the introduction of other aliens from the comics, like Martian Manhunter and Lobo. People say that Man of Steel is a dark film, but I don't think anyone will be saying that about Man of Tomorrow. Now, when I meet someone for the first time and I tell them I'm a fan of DC Comics, the usual response from them is either
Let me guess. They say, "Oh God, I'm so sorry."
What? No. Fuck you. They usually tell me how much they like or don't like how dark DC's films are, which always kind of throws me. Batman is definitely a dark character, but Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, none of those characters are dark. Christopher Nolan's successful dark and grounded take on Batman in his films certainly inspired a more realistic and dark take on the DC pantheon in film, and I've enjoyed almost all of those interpretations, like the Man of Steel. But to me, DC has never been dark, especially in regards to Superman.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because in regards to the movie Man of Steel, I think a lot of people give that film flack for presenting a darker take on Superman, but I don't necessarily think that it's a darker take. I think it's a somewhat realistic take of what happens when you put this hopeful, pure character into a grounded, realistic world. Pure and hopeful Superman is nice, but he only exists within the two-dimensional world of the comic books. Man of Steel portrayed a hopeful Superman within a three-dimensional world with a society similar to the one that exists today.
Some of DC's most popular characters, specifically Superman and Batman, were created before postmodernism really took hold in Western society. Superman was created to uphold what was, at the time, a black and white modernistic value system. He was a symbol of hope and belief that truth, justice, and the American way will always conquer quote-unquote evil. Well, after society witnessed the horrors of World War II, new dynamics within our culture allowed us to redefine concepts such as evil and truth. Things, we learned, aren't necessarily black and white. There are shades of gray that exist, and each unique shade is an individual's own set of values and experiences, their own concepts of morality and truth. That's what postmodernism is, shades of gray. Well, modernism is black and white. And as postmodernism took hold, concepts such as right and wrong and truth became murkier or darker, which has made things more interesting, certainly. But there's always been within society a subtle hope or yearning for a more simplistic worldview of black and white. Now, Superman has always been, for the most part, a modernistic character, which has resulted in a lot of skeptics and critics, many of them Marvel fans, saying that he's an outdated and irrelevant symbol.
Oh yeah, totally.
Over the decades, DC kind of gambled with giving the masses what they wanted and rebooted their comics characters in the New 52 event, which gave us a more contemporary version of DC back in 2011. And that included a more cynical version of Superman. In the New 52, Superman's parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent, both died in a car accident when he was relatively young, so he lacked that strong moral foundation that he's known for. DC's animation department followed after the New 52, not long after, and it definitely made for some interesting storytelling, but many fans of Superman and DC Comics didn't recognize these new takes on classic characters. Cynicism is sort of like the opposite of hope, and it kind of tarnished the symbol of Superman, which is bad for DC because, unlike Marvel, DC's characters aren't meant to be relatable, but enduring symbols. Now, with DC's 2016 Rebirth event in the comics that started the slow transition back to prior continuity and character mannerisms, the DC animation department has finally gotten their own rebirth with Superman Man of Tomorrow. Hopefully, because I like this bright version of the character a lot more than what we've been seeing in movies and animation in a long while. Probably not since Bruce Timm's Superman the Animated Series from the 90s. To me, this film was an ideal blend of classic, modernistic, hopeful Superman with a postmodern interpretation of the character struggling with the fact that he's an alien. This was a solid PG-13 Superman. It could have even been PG if it wasn't for some of Lobo's jokes and swear words.
And Superman's butt cheeks.
Oh my gosh.
Which were in the movie.
Of course
like
they were.
Right
it's a DC animated film. Why wouldn't they have nudity? Now, I don't think Superman needs to be in R-rated films, like DC animated films have loved doing recently, as you mentioned earlier. Now, as much as I like how they portrayed Superman, I do wish the story of this film was better. I actually, as embarrassed as I am to admit, found myself dozing off both times I've watched this film, and I never fall asleep during movies. The pacing here was a little slow. The stakes weren't that high, and I felt there was just a general lack of enthusiasm from the voice cast overall. But let's talk about the cast in our character breakdown. Now, Superman was voiced by Darren Criss, who I think sounds just like a younger Tim Daly, the actor who voiced Superman in Bruce Timm's animated series.
Yeah, he did a great job. I think he was the best out of this cast. I hope he has a long career as the character.
Now, there wasn't much difference between his Clark Kent and Superman voice, but that's not surprising given that Clark Kent still, isn't sure what Superman is in this film. There wasn't much difference between Henry Cavill's Clark Kent and Superman either. There's this sort of debate amongst DC fans as to whether or not Clark Kent is an act, or if that's how Superman really is. Sort of like how Bruce Wayne's aloof playboy persona is the disguise and Batman is who the character truly is. If Clark Kent is the act, then it makes sense that he would have a nerdy, meek voice. But that wasn't the case in this film.
Where do you fall on that debate? Do you think Clark Kent is the act and Superman is the real deal, or do you think the reverse?
I think Clark Kent at the Daily Planet should be an act. But I think Clark Kent at the Kent farm is closer to the confident Superman we know and his true persona.
Gotcha.
But even though Darren Criss didn't do a nerdy voice for Clark Kent, he still came across as unironically dorky, in a way that the character of Clark Kent hasn't been portrayed in almost a decade. And I didn't mind it. Like, I've always kind of related to that aspect of Superman.
Yeah, I like a dorky Superman. You know, it's an interesting dichotomy giving such a dorky Boy Scout of a character so much power.
Yeah, right, absolutely. It's part of the appeal. Now, Clark Kent's arc in this film is really about presentation. By the start of the film, he's already introduced himself to the world, but not as Superman, because he doesn't even know anything about Krypton or his alien heritage. He flies around in a black jacket and aviator helmet / mask, sort of hiding himself. I loved the line in the film where Clark repeats a lesson that his parents taught him. You know, the world is dangerous and unforgiving. If you're different, special, you have two options. You can either meet it head on and accept the consequences, or keep your head down and accept the consequences. There's no wrong choice, but you have to make one. And you have to be able to live with it. And to me, that was Clark's arc in a nutshell. It was all about the consequences of coming out as an alien, as different, as special. It's not until Lobo comes to town in this sort of underwhelming first contact approach to the story that Clark learns more about his alien background, and it takes the threat of Lois outing him as an alien for him to embrace what he really is and show that aspect to the world. An aspect that says, hey, I'm an alien, but I'm also like you, and nothing to be afraid of. Now, I wish I could say there were any good Superman moments in this film, like in costume, but there weren't. Like the 2 times he fought in costume, he was unable to defeat Parasite. The one victory he did have against Lobo, he finished the fight completely naked, which was a choice? I want to know who is making that choice to have nudity in every single DC animated film. What pervert is making me look at Superman's ass? I don't want to see that. One thing they never addressed about the character in this film was why he chose to wear glasses as a child. It's little questions like this that they never address that just kind of stand out to me in this film. Moving on to Lois Lane, she was voiced by Alexandra Daddario, and her performance wasn't bad. It was just lacking energy, which, like I said before, could actually be said of the entire cast, except for maybe Lobo.
I thought she gave a good performance. I think her voice tone is about right for the character. I think Alexandra Daddario would make a great live-action Lois Lane.
I agree. Yeah, I can totally see that. Now, in most tellings of Superman's origin, by the time he starts saving the day in Metropolis, Lois is already an accomplished reporter. In this film, she's just starting out at the Daily Planet and made a name for herself by revealing that Lex committed fraud with government funding. But she did that reveal in a really weird and almost sinister way. She had a recording of Lex admitting that rockets his company made to launch a Starlab satellite into space were faulty. People's lives were at stake because of these faulty rockets, and Lois knew that. So you think she'd deliver the recorded evidence to the authorities before the launch, but no. She had to wait until the launch during a press event with Lex Luthor to have this gotcha moment that result in Lex being arrested and she herself getting a publicity boost to get hired on at the Daily Planet. Like, she's lucky Superman was there, because if anyone died, she'd have blood on her hands. It's just bad writing.
There would be no way that she should be hired onto the planet due to her gross unprofessionalism and lack of journalism ethics. She was also kind of a dick when she was trying to steal Clark Kent's story about Parasite versus Superman and Martian Manhunter.
Right? Yeah, I thought that too. Throughout the film, you know, when she's a reporter for the Planet, anytime she talks with Clark, it's always about power moves and bringing down these powerful men. And I don't get her motivation. I mean, I understand why she'd want to bring down Lex. You know, he was a criminal. But she has aspirations of winning a Pulitzer by sowing distrust for someone she herself calls Superman. Someone who she knows does good and saves people. I don't get it. And I don't get why Clark would still have feelings for her after that.
That's a really good point. This version of Lois was highly biased. She definitely had an agenda of bringing down powerful people. She should be focused on the truth.
And if she really wanted to take down Superman, you know, which were her own words, you think she would call him like evil alien man or something like that, not Superman. It's weird.
Yeah.
She said she was a reporter in order to fight for truth and justice.
Really, she should have said she's a reporter to stick it to the man.
That would have made more sense with her characterization in this film. Speaking of the man, Lex Luthor was voiced by Zachary Quinto, or Spock, from the Star Trek films. I thought his voice performance as Lex Luthor was one of the best I've heard in a long time.
Definitely.
It sounded smart and snarky and charming and pompous. It's pretty close to the voice of Lex Luthor I've always had in my head when I read the comics. Now, Lex sounded smart, but revealing fraud to a journalist over champagne and then being present for a rocket launch, knowing your rockets would most likely fail, seems really stupid. All that said, I still think this is a better version of the character than what we saw with Gene Hackman or Jesse Eisenberg.
Oh, hell yeah.
If they ever want to get Lex Luthor right in live action, they need to look at animated takes on the character like in this film. I think one of the reasons I liked Lex in this film, aside from his depiction as a super connected, shrewd businessman and engineer, was because of the dramatic irony that the writers incorporated into the story. Like, Superman went to Lex for help in stopping Parasite, and Superman revealed so many of his weaknesses with Lex just asking for them. There were so many moments where I was like, Superman, you naive fool, that's Lex Luthor!
Yeah, he didn't know at this time that he wasn't supposed to trust Lex yet.
Yeah, exactly.
He just knew of him as a smart guy who could help him.
They weren't exactly arch nemesis by this point in Superman's career. It's not until the end of the film that Lex reveals himself as a traitor, but I'm not clear as to why exactly this version of Lex hates Superman. Like in the comics, it's in part like a hatred of aliens in general. It's in part that Superman kind of steals his thunder as the savior of Metropolis. They didn't touch on any of that in this film. Moving on to my favorite character in the film, Lobo, voiced by Ryan Hurst. Now, I thought he provided some much needed comic relief. Like, he was a great foil for just about every other character in this film. Everyone was so serious and tame, and he was like talking about how he needs to go take a giant space dump.
He almost felt like he didn't belong in this film.
I agree.
Such a different character than everybody else. And, Lobo is such a different character than everybody else in the comics, but tonally, he felt out of place.
I thought the same thing.
That being said, it was fun to watch.
Yeah, he's crude, but that's also the character. It's kind of an interesting take for the first alien that the world encounters to be Lobo, a crude biker bounty hunter. Like, everyone seemed to be kind of okay with it. It was never explained why Lobo came to Earth to capture Superman to begin with. Like, who exactly placed the bounty on Superman? It's a huge plot point that's never addressed.
That's true.
I thought from the trailers that Brainiac was going to be in this film and take on, the Preserver's role in the animated series episode that featured Lobo. It was this character that collected things like Brainiac, and Lobo was hired to bring him the last Kryptonian. My favorite moment with Lobo was the scene where he was trapped in his Star Labs containment cell being interviewed by Lois. The way he was just ignoring Lois's questions and harassing her, like getting electrocuted while licking the glass and afterward performing an Appalachian mating dance.
Yeah, these two characters were like in completely different movies. I thought it was hilarious though.
Parasite showed up right after that, and Lobo's reaction to him getting overloaded with energy was just like, well, all right then. It was just a standout performance for sure. Like, kudos to the animators. One thing that bothered me about Lobo was that he really didn't face any consequences from Superman or anyone for destroying Rudy Jones's life.
Well, he did blow himself up.
Like, you would think Superman would not be cool and buddy-buddy with Lobo by the end of the film, knowing that he was responsible for transforming Rudy Jones into the Parasite and basically killing the guy.
Yeah, it's true.
Speaking of Parasite, Rudy Jones, aka Parasite, was voiced by Brett Dalton. He's one of the actors on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, he played Ward, and his character was really good. He played a member of Hydra that, double-crossed S.H.I.E.L.D.
I liked his performance in this film, too. The character was portrayed differently than he usually is. Usually, Rudy is depicted as a lowlife or slacker, but here, he was a military vet with a family, and his story in the film is actually pretty tragic. He didn't do anything wrong. He was just a Star Labs janitor in the wrong place at the wrong time. In the comics, he gets doused with radioactive biohazardous waste, but here, I thought it was pretty clever that it was one of Lobo's alien EMP grenades that turned Rudy into the Parasite. The grenade splattered this organic purple substance intended to drain all power it came into contact with, and that substance fused with Rudy's DNA. Throughout the movie, we see Rudy's pregnant wife and daughter just waiting for him. And he even visits them once, but he scares his daughter, so he vanishes. It's so heartbreaking.
Yeah. I like the design of the character.
Yeah.
He was like part xenomorph, part Godzilla, part insect. It was interesting.
It was cool. Now, he usually does increase in size when he drains power in the comics, but I've never seen him like go Godzilla-sized. He was displaying all kinds of new and weird powers at the end. Sonic screams, fire breath. I have no idea where he got any of those abilities. And I'm at a loss for what happened to Parasite at the end of the film. Like either he absorbed Superman's heroism and seeing a mother and child on the bridge that reminded him of his own family inspired him to save everybody by absorbing all of the exploding nuclear reactor's energy, or he was just a power-hungry monster who drained more power than the cells in his body could absorb.
I never knew that Parasite had a limit, and I thought the fact that he just kind of essentially killed himself by accident or on purpose, who knows, was kind of a little bit of a deus ex machina for the story. Superman really had no hand in Parasite's defeat.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I would have much rather seen Superman save the day instead of, like, collapsing in the bay, too drained of his energy to do anything. It was really anticlimactic, with, as you said, a dose of Deus Ex Machina, because the nuclear reactor went critical just at random for no apparent reason. Lex was running away with the kryptonite ring, Martian Manhunter caught him, and the next thing you know, Lex is tied up, telling Martian Manhunter that he should have let him turn the reactor off. It's like, sure, Lex, that's why you were running away.
Also, Parasite's power draining levels seem to be inconsistent within the film, because the first time Parasite touches Superman, it seems like it's only for a moment, and Superman's powers are almost gone by the midway through the film.
Yeah.
But the second time he fights Superman, he holds on to him for a pretty long time, and Superman still retains, it seems, a much greater degree of his power in the final battle.
That's true. Continuity, it's important. The last character I want to touch on is Martian Manhunter, who is voiced by Ike Amati. It was nice having him in this film. He's a pretty similar character to Superman, you know, the last surviving member of his alien race. So the fact that he would be like the first hero friend of Superman is kind of fitting, I think. And they did a good job differentiating him power-wise in this film.
Yeah.
He was kind of a creeper initially, like stalking Superman, even showing up at the Kent farm like unannounced. But ultimately, his telepathic abilities played a critical role in revealing to Clark his Kryptonian heritage.
Yeah, Martian Manhunter has never traditionally been a part of Superman's early career, but I like this sort of mentor-mentee relationship that they established in this film.
Yeah, I thought it was really smart. I really liked that. I was surprised when Parasite used heat vision to kill Martian Manhunter, but I was even more surprised when that turned out to be a telepathic trick and the Martian Manhunter was still alive. It was kind of cheap.
It was a little bit, because you didn't know that he could cast telepathic illusions. I'm wondering why they didn't try to use fire against Parasite, knowing that he had acquired that weakness from Martian Manhunter.
I don't think they ever explicitly established that fire was his weakness. But you're right, you would think if heat vision worked against Martian Manhunter, Superman's heat vision would have been much more effective in taking down Parasite. It would have been nice to see like Martian Manhunter and Superman take on Godzilla-sized Parasite in the end, but Martian Manhunter really only showed up in the final battle to capture Lex. It was kind of an opportunity wasted.
Especially since he just kind of babysat Lex and yelled at Superman to do shit at the end of the movie.
Right.
It's like, dude, deal with the big monster.
Especially considering he's a telepath and could easily have found him again. Now, we've touched on quite a bit of the plot, but let's go over it quickly in our story highlights. The film starts off with Clark as a child at a friend's sleepover, where he cries over a scary depiction of a TV alien and his friend's frightened reaction to it. His dad, Jonathan Kent, picks him up, and sometime afterward, we see a spectacled Clark trying to activate a Kryptonian device while his parents talk about the changes he's going through. Flash forward about 15 years, and we see Clark living in Metropolis working as an intern for the Daily Planet, getting coffee for reporters during a shuttle launch. Lois confronts Lex about the faulty rockets during a press briefing, and Lex is arrested. Meanwhile, Clark befriends Rudy, the Star Lab's janitor, who tells Clark that the lab has all kinds of experimental equipment to contain aliens and superpowered beings. That's a weird thing for a janitor to just reveal to a reporter.
Especially considering that at this point in Earth's history, they haven't made first contact yet with aliens. And yet they have all these preemptive defenses against them that are so specific without even knowing if aliens exist. If the janitor told that to me, I'd be like, oh, okay, janitor guy, I'm going to walk away now.
He's crazy. The shuttle's rockets explode in midair, and Clark carries the rocket into space, where he notices he's energized by the sun. At the Daily Planet, Clark meets Lois, who's been hired on as a reporter. It's revealed that Lois is researching superheroes, including Batman, who she notes has a cool cape.
I don't like the fact that Batman's getting photographed this much early in his career.
I also don't like the fact that Martha was like, oh, that nice Batman that I'm always seeing in the supermarket tabloids. It's like, no one should think Batman is a nice guy. They should be frightened of him.
Exactly.
As Clark is back at his apartment trying to fashion his own cape, Lobo arrives from space, and he and Clark fight. Clark learns that he's the last Kryptonian from Lobo, and he takes the fight to Star Labs. I'm assuming in the hope that they would be able to contain Lobo, but I'm not sure exactly why. As scientists flee the labs, Rudy gets caught and infected by one of Lobo's weapons. Lobo whips out a kryptonite ring and beats Clark to a pulp, but Martian Manhunter shows up on the scene to help, while Clark flies into space to heal. Clark returns from space naked and defeats Lobo. At the Daily Planet, Clark learns that Lois believes Superman is an alien, like Lobo, and she plans on exposing him, much to his dismay. At the Kent farm, Clark goes to his parents for guidance before they encounter Martian Manhunter in disguise. After a brief tussle, Clark and Martian Manhunter learn that they have a lot in common, and Martian Manhunter helps Clark learn more about his Kryptonian heritage. Meanwhile, Rudy escapes from Star Labs and starts draining people of their energy. As Clark's mom gives him the Superman suit so that his clothes won't burn up in battle, Lois interviews Lobo just before Parasite shows up to attack Lobo for what he did to him. Lobo escapes his Star Labs containment, and Superman and Martian Manhunter confront Parasite in the streets of Metropolis. Martian Manhunter is seemingly killed by Parasite. Clark, discouraged and drained of most of his power, is inspired by Lois to seek help from someone smarter than him, so he goes to Lex Luthor for consultation and help in getting back into space, where he could re-energize his power with the sun.
But Lex is like, you don't need to be repowered. Let's just learn what your weaknesses are.
Lex buys a day pass from prison to help Superman, before revealing that while in prison, Lex hired Lobo, and together, the three of them plan to capture Parasite by shutting off all of the city's power, except for the nuclear power plant, drawing him in, and using Lobo's kryptonite ring to stop Parasite. The trap works, and Parasite shows up as big as Godzilla, for some reason.
And with Godzilla's powers.
Super weird. Lobo seemingly dies, and Lex uses his kryptonite ring to power a weapon he uses against both Parasite and Superman. Martian Manhunter shows up out of nowhere and stops Lex, while Parasite, for no reason whatsoever, decides to leave the power plant and approach some people on a nearby bridge, including Lois. Superman tries to stop Parasite, but he's drained of more energy before the people on the bridge start attacking Parasite themselves. Superman makes a plea to the people to stop attacking Parasite, revealing that Parasite isn't an alien, but that he, Superman, is.
I did think it was kind of a weird moment when Superman revealed his alien nature to the public on that bridge. It was like he kind of pressed pause on the whole battle to deliver the speech, and like Parasite complied by giving Superman the platform to announce his alien nature.
You almost think he would have started like a slow clap. And everyone would just like join in.
It was just strange timing.
I guess you could argue that he absorbed some of Superman's personality so that he didn't want to hurt people. I don't know. I'm making shit up. The power plant goes critical, and Parasite dies, draining it of its last remaining energy before it could explode. In the end, Superman, Martian Manhunter, and a resurrected Lobo reunite before Lobo heads back up into space, revealing that there are more Martians and Kryptonians out there. Superman encourages Martian Manhunter to go with Lobo before Lois meets Superman on the roof and is denied an interview. Back in the newsroom, Clark is amused that Lois is now obsessed with Superman. And that's the film. Now, there was a lot to dislike and like about this film. Just to recap, I liked the animation, I liked the tone of the story and the characters, but I think all of that is negated with its pretty bad storytelling.
Yeah, on the surface, the movie is actually pretty good, but if you take a magnifying glass to any part of the story, it just doesn't hold up.
I do think despite that it's a decent foundation for a new animated universe, but I don't think I could honestly give it more than 2.5 stars. In good conscience, with all of the plot holes and questions it doesn't answer.
Yeah, it sucks to kind of give it that low of a score because it does seem low to me.
Especially considering this has like a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes as of this review. I'm like, what the hell, people? Were we watching the same film?
With how much there was to nitpick about the film, I think the star rating is accurate, but I will say that I am looking forward to seeing what else they come up with that's set within this particular universe they're establishing.
Yeah, if they could just button up the storytelling, I think these characters could be more true to their classic comic counterparts than the previous animated continuity. And with such better animation, I would hate for this to be just a standalone film.
Nowhere to go from here but up.
Up and away. Now that does it for this review. Let us know what you thought about the movie by writing into us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find links to all of our accounts by visiting our website, dynamicduel.com.
And on our site, you could also find a link to our Patreon page where we offer bonus content for you listeners. Check it out right after this episode by visiting patreon.com/dynamicduel. Our lowest tier is only $2 a month. Get that bonus content, guys.
We also have a merchandise store, which is available through dynamicduel.com, where we sell t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and more with our Dynamic Duel No Prize artwork, in addition to some other fan art.
Who are you drawing this week?
This week I will be drawing Brainiac, actually. Do you remember when I said that I thought Brainiac was going to be in this movie? Well, because I thought that, and because our executive producers voted, the next episode is going to be a duel between Brainiac and Ultron.
And that's going to be one hell of a duel. I'm really looking forward to that one. Ultron is a badass villain within the Marvel Universe, and I think it's going to be really exciting to pit him up against Brainiac.
Brainiac is going to fuck Ultron up.
Oh, is he now?
Yeah, it should be one epic match, so look forward to that next week. We want to remind everyone again to please subscribe to our show if you haven't, or please leave a rating or review on your platform of choice. Sharing the show on social media or in person is also a big help for us.
But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson, Jace Crump, and John Speas. Again, guys, look forward to a trailer of Ken Johnson's new podcast right after this episode. Thanks to all of our executive producers for helping make this podcast possible, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Up, up, and away.
True believers.
Hello, this is Sergeant Ken from You Call Those Tactics, the podcast where I take a movie from yesteryear and brutally roast it, taking those scenes that don't quite make any sense in the real world and bring them to your attention. I then take those scenes and kind of give you a real-world commentary of how things may work and have a whole lot of fun doing it. From time to time, I'll have guests on with different subject matter expertise, so I'm not the only one talking, and we all have a good time. Please like us and find us on all your podcasting apps, such as Apple Podcasts and Google Cast and Anchor. Like, subscribe, and review, and please join us. And thanks for listening.